Standing in the stillness of an ancient chamber, you whisper a single word, and within moments, it bounces back to you with startling clarity, as if the walls themselves are alive. This isn't science fiction, it's the reality of ancient echo chambers, spaces designed with such precision that they defy our modern understanding of acoustics. From the temples of the Mayans to the amphitheaters of the Greeks, these structures were more than just feats of engineering. They were tools of communication, ceremony, and perhaps even control. But why did ancient civilizations go to such lengths to manipulate sound? What were they trying to achieve, and what secrets do these chambers still hold? Today, we'll unravel the mysteries of these ancient soundscapes, exploring their purpose, their design, and the theories that attempt to explain their existence. Get ready to step into a world where sound wasn't just heard, it was harnessed, revered, and used in ways that continue to baffle us even today. Long before modern science uncovered the secrets of sound, ancient civilizations were already mastering the art of acoustics in ways that still leave us in awe. One of the most fascinating examples lies in the Oracle of Delphi, a sacred site in ancient Greece where whispers could travel with astonishing clarity across stone walls. Here, priests and priestesses would deliver prophecies, their voices resonating through the chamber in a way that must have felt otherworldly to those who listened. But this wasn't just a trick of the environment, it was a deliberate architectural marvel, designed to amplify sound in ways that defied the technology of the time. Far across the globe, the Mayans were achieving something equally extraordinary. Their pyramids, like the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, weren't just towering monuments to their gods, they were also acoustic masterpieces. Clap your hands at the base of the pyramid, and you'll hear the echo mimicking the sound of the sacred Quetzal bird, a creature deeply tied to their spiritual beliefs. This wasn't accidental. The Mayans understood how to manipulate sound to create specific auditory effects, embedding their sacred spaces with layers of meaning that went beyond mere architecture. What's striking about these ancient echo chambers is their placement. They weren't hidden away or built for practical purposes like storage or shelter. Instead, they were central to the spiritual and ceremonial life of their communities. Whether it was the Oracle of Delphi, where the divine was believed to speak through the echoes, or the Mayan pyramids, where sound connected the earthly and the divine, these structures were deeply intertwined with the sacred. This suggests that sound wasn't just a tool for communication, it was a bridge to something greater, a way to commune with the gods or the cosmos itself. The precision of these designs is another layer of the mystery. Ancient builders didn't have the advanced tools or mathematical models we use today, yet they crafted spaces where sound behaved in predictable, intentional ways. How did they achieve this level of sophistication? Were they guided by trial and error, or did they possess knowledge that we've only begun to rediscover? Either way, their work reveals an understanding of acoustics that challenges our assumptions about the capabilities of ancient civilizations. But here's the real question: why go to such lengths? What purpose did these echo chambers serve beyond their obvious spiritual significance? Were they merely tools for religious ceremonies, or did they have a deeper, perhaps even practical, function? The answers might lie in the way these spaces were used, and that's where the story gets even more intriguing. Have you ever stood in an empty room and clapped your hands only to hear that sharp, echoing sound bounce back at you? That's the magic of physics at work, sound waves interacting with space. Now, imagine what ancient builders could achieve when they intentionally designed structures to manipulate those waves. This brings us to the science behind echo chambers, where the physics of sound becomes a tool for creating awe-inspiring acoustic experiences. At the heart of these ancient marvels are three key concepts: resonance, reverberation, and sound amplification. Resonance is what happens when sound waves match the natural frequency of a space, creating vibrations that amplify the sound. Think of it like pushing a child on a swing. Timing your pushes just right makes the swing go higher and higher. Ancient architects used this principle to design chambers where even a whisper could travel across the room with startling clarity. Then there's reverberation, the way sound lingers in a space after the original noise has stopped. This effect is shaped by the size and shape of the chamber, as well as the materials used to build it. For example, a smooth, curved stone wall would reflect sound waves more effectively than a rough, uneven surface. This is why places like the Hypogeum of Hal Saflini in Malta produce such eerie, otherworldly acoustics. In this underground labyrinth, certain chambers are designed so precisely that sound waves create a haunting hum, almost as if the stones themselves are singing. But how did ancient builders figure this out without modern tools? The answer lies in their deep understanding of geometry and materials. They experimented with different shapes like domes, arches, and narrow passageways to control how sound moved through space. They also carefully selected materials such as dense stone or clay that could reflect and amplify sound without absorbing it. These choices weren't accidental, they were deliberate, showcasing a sophisticated grasp of acoustics long before the science was formally understood. What's truly fascinating is how these principles were applied with purpose. The eerie acoustics of the Hypogeum, for instance, weren't just a happy accident. They were likely designed to enhance rituals or ceremonies, creating an immersive experience that felt almost supernatural. This raises an intriguing question. If ancient cultures understood sound manipulation so well, what were they trying to achieve? Were these echo chambers meant to connect with the divine, communicate across long distances, or something else entirely? As we explore these possibilities, we're reminded that the science behind these structures is as much about human ingenuity as it is about physics. The ancient world may not have had our technology, but their mastery of sound reveals a level of sophistication that continues to amaze us today. And as we uncover more about these acoustic wonders, we're left to wonder, what other secrets might they still hold? Imagine standing in a dark, ancient chamber, surrounded by stone walls that seem to hum with life. The air feels charged, almost electric, as a single chant or drumbeat reverberates through the space, growing louder and more resonant with each echo. For ancient worshippers, this wasn't just sound, it was a gateway to the divine. Many ancient cultures believed that echo chambers served as sacred spaces where the boundary between the earthly and the spiritual worlds blurred. The amplification of sound wasn't just a physical phenomenon, it was a tool to evoke awe, to make the presence of gods or ancestors feel tangible. When a priest's voice or a ritual drumbeat echoed through these chambers, it wasn't just heard, it was felt, creating an immersive experience that brought worshippers closer to the sacred. Take the Chavín de Huanta in Peru, for example. This sprawling temple complex, built over 2,000 years ago, was designed with acoustics in mind. Researchers have discovered that certain passageways and chambers were engineered to amplify specific sounds, like the blowing of conch shell trumpets or the rhythmic pounding of drums. During ceremonies, these sounds would fill the space, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that heightened the spiritual experience. It's believed that these auditory effects were used to simulate the voices of deities or ancestral spirits, making the divine feel present and immediate. For the people of Chavín, sound wasn't just part of the ritual. It was the ritual, a way to connect with forces beyond human understanding. But while the spiritual significance of these chambers is undeniable, it's worth considering that their purpose might have extended beyond the sacred. Could these echo chambers have also served practical functions, enhancing communication or even acting as early forms of public address systems? The interplay between the spiritual and the practical in these ancient structures raises fascinating questions about how sound shaped both the sacred and the everyday lives of our ancestors. It's fascinating to think that ancient civilizations might have used echo chambers not just for ritual or art, but as tools for communication. Imagine standing in one of these chambers, your voice amplified and carried far beyond what seems possible. The theory that these structures served as ancient communication devices is both intriguing and plausible, especially when you consider the physics of sound and how it behaves in enclosed spaces. Sound waves, when channeled correctly, can travel remarkable distances with minimal distortion. This could have been a game changer for societies that needed to relay messages across vast terrains without the luxury of modern technology. Take, for example, the whispering galleries found in European cathedrals, like the one in St. Paul's Cathedral in London. These architectural marvels are designed in such a way that even the softest whisper can be heard clearly on the opposite side of the dome, dozens of feet away. The precision with which these spaces direct sound is no accident. It's a testament to the ingenuity of their creators. If such structures could be built centuries ago, it's not hard to imagine that ancient cultures might have harnessed similar principles for practical purposes. But here's where it gets even more interesting. While the idea of using echo chambers for communication is practical, it's also worth considering how these spaces might have served dual purposes. Could they have been both functional and symbolic? After all, sound carries an almost mystical quality. It's invisible, yet it can evoke deep emotions and connect people across distances. In ancient times, where the line between the practical and the spiritual was often blurred, it's possible that these chambers were seen as bridges between the earthly and the divine. They might have been places where messages weren't just transmitted, but transformed, where the spoken word took on a sacred significance. So, what does this mean for our understanding of these ancient structures? It suggests that their purpose might have been as layered as the echoes they produce. They weren't just tools or temples, they were spaces where the practical and the profound intersected, where the human voice could reach both across the land and perhaps into the realm of the gods. This duality makes them all the more fascinating, reminding us that the past often holds mysteries that defy simple explanations. One of the most fascinating theories about ancient echo chambers is their potential use in healing and therapy. Imagine walking into a space where sound doesn't just echo, it seems to resonate within you, almost as if the walls are alive. Many researchers believe these chambers were designed not just to amplify sound, but to harness specific frequencies that could influence the human body and mind. It's a concept that feels almost otherworldly, yet it's grounded in both ancient traditions and modern science. Take, for example, the way certain vibrations can affect our nervous system. Low-frequency sounds have been shown to promote relaxation, while higher pitches can stimulate alertness and focus. Ancient cultures may have understood this intuitively, using these chambers to create soundscapes that could calm the mind, ease physical pain, or even induce altered states of consciousness. In fact, some historians suggest that these spaces were seen as sacred precisely because they offered a way to connect with something greater, be it the divine, nature, or the self. Modern sound therapy echoes these ancient practices in surprising ways. Studies today show that specific sound frequencies can reduce stress, improve sleep, and even enhance cognitive function. Instruments like Tibetan singing bowls or tuning forks are used to produce vibrations that align with the body's natural rhythms, much like how ancient echo chambers might have worked. It's a striking parallel that suggests our ancestors may have been onto something profound. But what if these chambers were used for more than just healing? Could they have also been tools for divination or prophecy? Some theories propose that the acoustics of these spaces were designed to amplify not just sound, but intuition, creating an environment where the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds blurred. It's an idea that adds another layer of mystery to these ancient structures, hinting at purposes that go far beyond what we can easily explain. As we explore these possibilities, one thing becomes clear: these echo chambers were far more than architectural marvels. They were spaces where sound became a bridge between the body and the mind, the earthly and the divine, the known and the unknown. And as we continue to uncover their secrets, we might just find that their echoes still have something to teach us today. Sound wasn't just a backdrop in ancient rituals, it was the heartbeat of the experience. Across cultures, from the rhythmic drumming of African tribes to the haunting chants of Tibetan monks, sound was used to bridge the gap between the physical and the spiritual. In many cases, these rituals weren't just about making noise. They were about creating an atmosphere so immersive, so emotionally charged that participants felt transported to another realm. And this is where the design of ancient spaces comes into play. Take, for instance, the Greek theaters. These weren't just places for entertainment. They were carefully engineered spaces where every word, every note could reach the farthest spectator with crystal clarity. The acoustics of these theaters were so precise that even a whisper on stage could be heard in the back rows. Imagine standing in one of these theaters during a performance, the sound of a flute or the cadence of a chorus echoing around you, amplifying not just the music but the emotions tied to it. But it wasn't just theaters. Ancient cultures understood that sound could shape human experience in profound ways. In many rituals, the use of echo chambers, whether natural caverns or man-made structures, allowed sound to reverberate, creating a sense of awe and connection. Picture this: a shaman beating a drum in a stone chamber, the sound bouncing off the walls, growing louder and more intense, until it felt as though the very earth was pulsing with energy. This wasn't just an auditory experience, it was a visceral one, designed to heighten emotions and create a shared sense of unity among participants. What's fascinating is how these sound-based rituals often served a dual purpose. On one level, they were deeply personal, helping individuals connect with the divine or the supernatural. On another level, they were communal, reinforcing social bonds and collective identity. The shared experience of sound, whether it was the rhythmic pounding of drums or the melodic chanting of prayers, could bring people together, creating a sense of belonging that was essential for the survival of early societies. And this leads us to an intriguing possibility. Could these rituals have been more than just spiritual practices? Could they have also served as a way to communicate, to teach, or even to heal? The echoes of the past seem to suggest so. Now, let's shift our focus to a theory that ties these ancient echo chambers to the heavens themselves. What if these structures weren't just about sound, but also about the stars? Some researchers believe that certain echo chambers were meticulously aligned with celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, and other significant moments in the sky. Imagine standing in one of these chambers as the first light of the winter solstice creeps in, the sound of your voice reverberating in harmony with the rising sun. It's a breathtaking idea, isn't it? Take Newgrange in Ireland, for example. This ancient passage tomb, built over 5,000 years ago, is a masterpiece of celestial alignment. At dawn on the winter solstice, a narrow beam of sunlight travels through a specially designed roof box, illuminating the inner chamber for just a few minutes. But here's the twist: the acoustics of the space amplify not just light but sound. The combination of these elements creates an almost otherworldly experience, blending sight and sound into a single, awe-inspiring moment. It's as if the architects of Newgrange were weaving together the physical and the spiritual, using both light and echoes to mark the passage of time and the cycles of nature. This interplay between sound and light wasn't just for spectacle, though. Some scholars argue that these chambers were part of a sophisticated system of knowledge, a way for ancient cultures to predict astronomical events and understand their world on a deeper level. By aligning these spaces with celestial patterns, they could track the seasons, predict agricultural cycles, and even plan religious ceremonies. It's a reminder that our ancestors weren't just building for the present. They were creating tools for the future, embedding their wisdom into the very stones they shape. And this brings us to an intriguing possibility. What if these echo chambers were more than individual structures? What if they were nodes in a larger network, a kind of ancient observatory system that spanned entire regions? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. Across different cultures and continents, we find similar pattern spaces designed to capture both sound and light, tied to the rhythms of the cosmos. Could these chambers have been part of a shared language of knowledge, one that connected communities across time and space? It's a question that invites us to rethink not just how we see these ancient sites, but how we understand the ingenuity of the people who built them. One of the most baffling aspects of ancient echo chambers and sound technology is how the techniques used to create them have vanished from history. These structures, so precise in their design, were clearly the work of master craftsmen who understood acoustics in ways that modern science is still struggling to decode. Yet, despite their remarkable achievements, the knowledge behind their construction has been lost to time, leaving behind only the echoes of their genius and a trail of unanswered questions. Today, scientists and archaeologists face immense challenges in trying to replicate these ancient marvels. It's not just about carving stone or arranging chambers in a specific pattern. The builders of these structures seem to possess an intuitive grasp of sound waves, resonance, and even the properties of the materials they used. Modern attempts to recreate these effects often fall short, leading many to wonder if we're missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Was it a secret formula, a forgotten tool, or perhaps a deeper cultural understanding that made these designs possible? Part of the challenge lies in the fact that these techniques weren't just technical, they were deeply tied to the societies that created them. The builders weren't just engineers, they were storytellers, spiritual leaders, and innovators who saw sound as more than just a physical phenomenon. For them, it was a bridge between the earthly and the divine, a way to communicate with the gods or amplify the voices of their communities. This cultural context is something we can't easily replicate in a lab, and yet it might hold the key to unlocking their secrets. Ongoing efforts to understand these structures often involve a mix of cutting-edge technology and old-fashioned detective work. Archaeologists use laser scanning to map every detail of the chambers, while acousticians analyze how sound behaves within them. But even with these tools, there's a sense that we're only scratching the surface. The more we learn, the more questions arise, questions that might only be answered by stepping into the minds of the people who built these incredible spaces. And that's where the cultural context comes into play. Perhaps the answers aren't just in the stones themselves, but in the stories, beliefs, and traditions of the societies that shaped them. By exploring the worldviews of these ancient cultures, we might finally begin to hear the echoes of their wisdom and understand the true purpose behind their extraordinary creations. What if sound wasn't just something you heard, but something you felt, something that connected you to the divine, the mysterious, or even the afterlife? Across the globe, ancient cultures didn't just use sound as a tool for communication. They saw it as a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. From the echoing labyrinths of Mesoamerica to the resonant halls of the Mediterranean and the sacred spaces of Asia, sound was more than a vibration in the air. It was a language of the gods, a way to commune with forces beyond human understanding. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztec civilizations built structures designed to amplify and manipulate sound in ways that still baffle modern researchers. Take, for example, the ancient ball courts of Chichen Itza. When you stand at one end and clap, the sound reverberates in a way that mimics the call of the sacred Quetzal bird, a creature deeply tied to their cosmology. These echo chambers weren't just architectural marvels, they were spiritual tools designed to connect players and spectators with the divine during ceremonial games. The sound itself became a ritual, a way to honor their gods and reaffirm their place in the cosmos. Meanwhile, in the Mediterranean, the Greeks and Romans used sound in equally profound ways. The theater of Epidaurus, for instance, is renowned for its acoustic perfection. Even a whisper on stage can be heard clearly in the back rows, a testament to their mastery of sound. But this wasn't just about entertainment. The Greeks believed that sound had the power to heal, to purify, and to elevate the soul. Their theaters and temples were often placed in locations where natural acoustics amplified these effects, creating spaces where the human voice could reach the ears of the gods. Sound was a medium of worship, a way to bridge the gap between mortals and the divine. In Asia, the use of sound took on a different, yet equally symbolic role. Buddhist and Hindu temples often feature intricate designs that enhance the resonance of chanting and prayer. The Borobudur temple in Indonesia, for example, uses its stepped structure to create natural echo chambers that amplify the rhythmic chants of monks, turning their voices into a powerful, unifying force. Here, sound wasn't just heard, it was felt, a physical manifestation of spiritual energy. The vibrations of their chants were believed to cleanse the soul and bring worshippers closer to enlightenment. What's fascinating is how these cultures, separated by vast distances and time, all saw sound as something sacred. Whether it was the Quetzal's call in Mesoamerica, the healing echoes of Greek theaters, or the meditative chants of Asian temples, sound was a universal language of the sacred. But it wasn't just about the physical properties of these spaces. These echo chambers were symbolic too, representing the human desire to connect with something greater. They remind us that sound, in the ancient world, wasn't just a phenomenon of nature. It was a doorway to the divine, a tool for transformation, and a reflection of the deepest values and beliefs of the cultures that created them. One of the most fascinating aspects of ancient echo chambers lies not just in their acoustic properties, but in the intricate symbolism woven into their very design. These structures weren't merely functional, they were works of art carefully crafted to communicate ideas, stories, and perhaps even secrets. From geometric patterns that seem to echo the rhythms of the cosmos to mythological motifs that tell tales of gods and heroes, the symbolism in these chambers hints at a deeper layer of meaning, one that might have been as important as the sound itself. Take, for example, the Hypogeum of Hal Saflini in Malta. This underground sanctuary, carved into limestone over 5,000 years ago, is a masterpiece of ancient engineering and artistry. Its walls are adorned with spirals, triangles, and other geometric shapes, each meticulously etched into the stone. These patterns aren't random, they appear to follow a deliberate design, one that may have been intended to reflect cosmic order or spiritual beliefs. The spiral, in particular, is a recurring motif in ancient cultures, often symbolizing cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Could the echoes within these chambers have been part of a ritual meant to connect the living with the eternal? But the symbolism goes even deeper. In some echo chambers, mythological figures are depicted alongside the geometric designs. These carvings could represent deities, ancestors, or legendary heroes, suggesting that the chambers were not just spaces for sound, but also for storytelling and remembrance. Imagine standing in one of these chambers, the sound of your voice reverberating off walls adorned with images of gods and cosmic patterns. It's easy to see how these environments could have served as powerful tools for teaching, meditation, or even initiation into sacred mysteries. What's truly intriguing is the possibility that these symbols weren't just decorative. they might have encoded knowledge. Ancient cultures often used visual and spatial symbolism to convey complex ideas, especially in sacred spaces. The alignment of certain symbols with specific acoustic effects could hint at a deliberate interplay between sound and meaning. For instance, a chamber designed to amplify certain frequencies might feature symbols associated with the elements or celestial bodies, creating a multisensory experience that resonated on both a physical and spiritual level. As we uncover more about these designs, it becomes clear that the echo chambers of the ancient world were far more than just architectural marvels. They were canvases for storytelling, repositories of knowledge, and perhaps even keys to understanding the beliefs and priorities of the people who built them. The symbols etched into their walls might hold clues to their true purpose, waiting for us to decipher their meaning. And as we explore these clues, we inch closer to unraveling one of history's most enduring mysteries. Now let's step into the sacred spaces of the ancient world, where sound wasn't just a tool, it was a bridge to the divine. Priests and shamans, the spiritual leaders of their time, often held the keys to these mysterious echo chambers, using sound in ways that seemed almost magical to their communities. These spaces weren't just architectural marvels, they were instruments of power designed to amplify the voices of those who claimed to speak with gods, spirits, or the unseen forces of the universe. Take, for example, the Oracle of Delphi in ancient Greece. This sacred site was renowned for its prophetic powers, where the Pythia, a priestess, would deliver cryptic messages from the god Apollo. The chamber she sat in was said to amplify her voice, creating an otherworldly resonance that made her pronouncements feel like they came from another realm. The way sound echoed and reverberated in that space wasn't just an accident, it was a carefully crafted experience, designed to awe and inspire those who sought guidance. The priests who oversaw the oracle understood the psychological impact of sound, using it to reinforce their authority and the divine nature of their messages. But this wasn't unique to Delphi. Across cultures, from the shamans of Siberia to the priests of ancient Egypt, sound was a central element of ritual and ceremony. In many cases, these leaders used echo chambers to create an atmosphere of mystery and power. The way their voices bounced off the walls, the way chants or drum beats filled the space, it all contributed to a sense of connection to something greater than themselves. For the people who witnessed these rituals, the experience was transformative, reinforcing their faith and the authority of their spiritual guides. Yet, while these chambers were often linked to the sacred, they also served more practical purposes. The same principles that made them effective for rituals could be applied to everyday life. The next time you hear your voice echo in a large space, think about how ancient communities might have used that phenomenon not just to speak to the gods, but to communicate with each other, to gather and share stories, or even to make decisions. The line between the sacred and the mundane was often blurred in the ancient world, and sound was a thread that connected them both. Imagine standing in a circular chamber where every word you speak reverberates around you, amplifying your voice so that even the faintest whisper carries to the farthest corner. Now think about what that might mean for a community. Could these ancient echo chambers have been more than just architectural marvels? Could they have been the heart of communal life, places where stories were shared, knowledge was passed down, and decisions that shaped entire societies were made? Take, for example, the Kivas of the ancestral Pueblones. These subterranean chambers, often circular in design, were not just places of ritual but also served as central gathering spaces. The acoustics of these rooms were no accident. The way sound bounced off the walls created a unique environment where a single voice could be heard clearly by everyone present. This wasn't just about practicality, it was about connection. In a world without microphones or amplifiers, these spaces allowed leaders, storytellers, and elders to communicate effectively, ensuring that their messages resonated quite literally with the entire group. But it wasn't just about volume. The way sound traveled in these chambers had a psychological impact too. When you hear your own voice echoing back to you, or when the words of a leader seem to fill the entire space, it creates a sense of unity. It's as if the room itself is affirming the importance of what's being said. This could have been especially powerful during times of decision-making or conflict resolution, where the acoustics might have helped to foster a sense of collective agreement or shared purpose. And let's not forget storytelling. In many ancient cultures, oral traditions were the primary way history, myths, and lessons were preserved. Picture a storyteller in one of these chambers, their voice amplified and enriched by the space around them. The stories they told wouldn't just be heard, they'd be felt as the echoes wrapped around the listeners, immersing them in the narrative. It's easy to see how these spaces could have been used to educate, inspire, or even entertain, bringing communities closer together through shared experiences. What's fascinating is that these chambers likely served multiple roles. They weren't just practical spaces for communication, they were also deeply symbolic. The very act of gathering in a space designed to amplify voices could have reinforced the idea of collective identity and shared purpose. In a world where community was everything, these echo chambers might have been as much about fostering a sense of belonging as they were about practicality. So, as we peel back the layers of history, it becomes clear that these ancient sound chambers were far more than curiosities of architecture. They were living, breathing spaces that played a central role in the social and cultural fabric of their time. And as we'll see next, their uses extended even further, blending the practical with the profound in ways that continue to captivate us today. When we think about the ancient echo chambers scattered across the world, it's impossible to ignore the profound role that geography played in their creation. These structures weren't just randomly placed, they were carefully situated in landscapes that amplified their acoustic power. The natural environment became a kind of co-architect, shaping the design and placement of these chambers to maximize their sonic potential. Take, for example, the echo wall at the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, China. This remarkable structure is nestled within a vast complex of ceremonial architecture, but it's the wall's placement and the surrounding geography that make it truly extraordinary. Built along a curve, the wall is designed to carry whispers across its length, allowing two people standing at opposite ends to hear each other clearly, even when speaking softly. But it's not just the wall itself, it's the way the surrounding landscape funnels sound, creating an almost magical effect that feels like a conversation with the earth itself. Mountains, valleys, and caves were more than just backdrops for these structures, they were integral to their function. In many ancient cultures, natural features like these were considered sacred, imbued with spiritual significance. By building echo chambers within or near these formations, ancient architects could harness the natural acoustics of the land, creating spaces where sound seemed to take on a life of its own. Imagine standing in a chamber carved into the side of a mountain, where the rock itself seems to hum with resonance. Or picture a valley where the wind carries voices across vast distances, creating an eerie sense of connection between people separated by space. These weren't just engineering feats, they were collaborations with the earth, blending human ingenuity with the raw power of nature. What's even more fascinating is how these chambers were often part of a larger network of sacred sites. They weren't isolated structures, but points in a vast, interconnected web of spiritual and cultural significance. The placement of an echo chamber near a mountain or within a valley wasn't just about acoustics, it was about aligning these spaces with the rhythms of the natural world. This connection suggests that ancient builders saw these chambers not just as tools for communication or ritual, but as living extensions of the landscape itself. And as we explore these sites today, we're left wondering, were these chambers meant to amplify sound, or were they designed to amplify something deeper? something intangible like the human connection to the earth and the cosmos. This idea leads us to the next chapter of our exploration, the possibility that these chambers were part of a larger, more mysterious network of sacred spaces, each one echoing not just sound but meaning. Now let's dive into one of the most intriguing aspects of ancient echo chambers, their relationship with water. It might seem surprising, but water played a significant role in shaping how sound traveled and resonated in these spaces. Whether it was underground streams, pools, or cisterns, water had a unique ability to amplify or alter sound in ways that added both functionality and mystery to these chambers. Take, for instance, the underground cisterns of Istanbul. These vast cavernous spaces built to store water also became accidental acoustic marvels. The presence of water created a reflective surface that bounced sound waves in unexpected ways, producing echoes that could feel almost otherworldly. Imagine standing in one of these dimly lit chambers, your voice reverberating off the water's surface and the stone walls, creating a symphony of echoes that seemed to linger forever. This wasn't just a practical space for water storage, it was a place where sound took on a life of its own. But why would ancient builders intentionally incorporate water into echo chambers? Some researchers believe water was used to enhance the acoustic properties of these spaces, creating a more immersive auditory experience. In certain rituals or ceremonies, the sound of dripping or flowing water could have been layered with chants or music, adding a sensory depth that resonated deeply with participants. Water, with its fluid and ever-changing nature, might have symbolized a connection to the divine or the unknown, making these chambers not just architectural feats but spiritual ones as well. The interplay between water and sound also raises questions about the intentions behind these designs. Were ancient engineers aware of how water would affect acoustics, or was it a happy accident? The cisterns of Istanbul suggest a level of sophistication that hints at deliberate planning, but other examples, like natural underground pools found in some echo chambers, might point to a more serendipitous discovery. Either way, the presence of water added another layer of intrigue to these spaces, blurring the line between practicality and mysticism. As we explore these connections, it's hard not to marvel at how ancient cultures harnessed natural elements like water to create spaces that were both functional and profoundly evocative. Water didn't just amplify sound, it transformed these chambers into something almost magical, where every whisper and footstep could carry a deeper meaning. And as we move forward, we'll see how this interplay between sound, water, and human ingenuity continued to shape the mysteries of ancient echo chambers. Imagine standing in the heart of an ancient Greek theater, the air buzzing with anticipation as a chorus begins to chant a sacred hymn. The sound swirls around you, bouncing off the curved walls and rising into the open sky. This wasn't just a performance, it was an experience, one that relied heavily on the interplay between music and the unique acoustics of these spaces. Music in many ancient cultures wasn't just an art form, it was a tool for connection, ritual, and even transformation. And when combined with the natural amplification of echo chambers, it became something truly extraordinary. In these spaces, every note, every beat was magnified. A single drum could resonate like thunder, and a choir's harmonies could feel as though they were coming from all directions at once. This wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. Ancient architects designed these chambers to enhance sound, creating environments where music could envelop the audience. Think about the ancient Greek theaters carved into hillsides with precision. The semicircular design wasn't just for aesthetics, it helped project sound evenly, ensuring even those seated at the very back could hear every word and note with clarity. But it wasn't just about volume. These spaces transformed the emotional impact of music. A hymn sung in a temple's echo chamber might have felt otherworldly, as if the voices of the singers were mingling with the divine. Ceremonial drumming in a stone chamber could have created a rhythm so powerful that it seemed to sync with the heartbeat of everyone present. These weren't just performances, they were communal experiences designed to unite people through sound. And while music was often tied to ritual and ceremony, there's evidence that these chambers were also used for more experimental purposes. Imagine ancient musicians testing the limits of these spaces, exploring how different notes and rhythms interacted with the acoustics. What might have started as a simple drumbeat could evolve into a symphony of echoes, each layer of sound adding depth and complexity. These experiments weren't just about entertainment, they were about understanding the very nature of sound itself, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with music and architecture. So, while we often think of these ancient echo chambers as mysterious or even mystical, they were also deeply practical. They were spaces where music could come alive in ways that modern concert halls still strive to replicate. And as we'll see, these chambers weren't just for music, they were also places where sound was used in ways that challenged the imagination and pushed the limits of human creativity. But what if these ancient echo chambers were more than just spaces for listening? What if they were laboratories of sound where early innovators experimented with the very nature of acoustics? It's a fascinating possibility that these chambers weren't just passive receivers of sound but active tools for discovery. Imagine a group of ancient musicians entering one of these spaces, not to perform but to test and refine their instruments. The precise reverberations of the chamber could have helped them tune strings, adjust drum heads, or even craft entirely new sounds. These experiments might have been the first steps toward understanding how sound behaves in different environments, a breakthrough that would later shape everything from musical composition to architectural design. And it's not just music that could have benefited. Think about the builders of these chambers meticulously shaping stone to amplify certain frequencies or mute others. They weren't just creating spaces for sound, they were exploring its properties, learning how to manipulate it. This knowledge could have influenced the design of temples, theaters, and even city layouts, as architects began to understand how sound travels and interacts with materials. In a way, these echo chambers might have been the ancient world's first acoustics labs, where the foundations of modern science were quietly being laid. But there's another layer to this story, one that takes us beyond the practical and into the mysterious. What if these chambers were also used for more esoteric purposes? What if the ancients weren't just studying sound, but using it to explore the boundaries of perception, consciousness, even spirituality? The resonance of these spaces could have been seen as a bridge to the divine, a way to amplify prayers or commune with unseen forces. This duality between science and spirituality, experimentation and ritual, hints at a deeper understanding of sound's power, one that we're only beginning to unravel today. And as we'll see, this blend of the practical and the mystical might hold the key to understanding why these chambers were so important to the cultures that built them. Now, let's step into one of the most intriguing theories surrounding ancient echo chambers: their potential role in altering human consciousness. Imagine standing in one of these acoustically precise spaces where every sound reverberates, creating an almost otherworldly resonance. Could these chambers have been designed not just to amplify sound, but to shift the very state of the mind? Some researchers believe so. The idea is that the constant rhythmic echoes and vibrations might have induced trance-like states, opening the door to visions or heightened spiritual awareness. Sound has a profound impact on the brain, something we're only beginning to fully understand even today. Modern studies show that certain frequencies and patterns of sound can influence brainwave activity, leading to altered states of consciousness. For example, binaural beats, a technique where two slightly different tones are played in each ear. can create a third pulsing tone in the brain, often associated with relaxation, focus, or even deep meditation. Ancient cultures might not have had the scientific language to describe these effects, but they likely understood the power of sound intuitively. The echo chambers, with their ability to manipulate sound waves, could have served as tools to help individuals enter these altered states more easily. But why would ancient people seek these trance-like experiences? For many cultures, altered states of consciousness were gateways to the divine. Shamans, priests, and spiritual leaders often used such states to communicate with ancestors, interpret omens, or gain insight into the future. The echo chamber, then, might have been a sacred instrument, a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. The vibrations and echoes could have acted as a kind of sonic key, unlocking a realm of perception that ordinary sound couldn't access. This brings us to another fascinating possibility: divination. If these chambers could alter consciousness, they might also have been used to seek guidance or predict the future. The combination of sound, space, and altered perception could have created an environment where the boundary between the mundane and the mystical blurred. Imagine a priest or oracle standing in the center of such a chamber, their voice echoing back to them, mingling with the vibrations in the air. Perhaps they interpreted these sounds as messages from the gods or spirits, using the chamber as a means to divine the unknown. The idea that ancient echo chambers were tools for both altering consciousness and divination opens up a whole new way of understanding their purpose. These spaces weren't just architectural marvels, they were gateways to the unseen, places where sound became a bridge to the sacred. And as we'll see next, this connection between sound and the spiritual may have extended even further into the realm of communication with the divine. But what if these ancient echo chambers weren't just for amplifying voices or creating awe-inspiring effects? What if they were also gateways to the divine? Across cultures and civilizations, sound has often been seen as a bridge between the mortal world and the realm of the gods. And when it comes to divination and prophecy, echo chambers may have played a fascinating role. Imagine standing in one of these resonant spaces where every whisper reverberates, every sound seems to carry a hidden meaning. Could these chambers have been designed not just to amplify sound, but to channel messages from the divine? Take the Oracle of Delphi, for example. Nestled on the slopes of Mount Parnassus in ancient Greece, the oracle was said to communicate directly with the god Apollo. But how did this work? Historians and archaeologists have long speculated that the oracle's chamber may have been designed with acoustics in mind. The space might have amplified her voice, creating an otherworldly echo that made her prophecies feel as though they were coming from a divine source. And then there's the possibility of natural gases like ethylene seeping through the earth beneath the temple, inducing a trance-like state. Combine that with the eerie resonance of the chamber, and it's easy to see how the oracle's words could have felt like they carried the weight of prophecy. But Delphi isn't the only example. In ancient Egypt, certain temples were built with precise acoustic properties, designed to enhance the voices of priests as they chanted prayers or recited sacred texts. The echoes within these spaces could have been interpreted as the gods responding, their voices mingling with those of the priests. And in the Americas, the Maya and Aztec civilizations constructed ceremonial spaces where sound played a central role in rituals meant to communicate with deities. The idea of sound as a medium for divine messages seems to be a thread woven through many ancient cultures. Yet, while these chambers may have been used for spiritual purposes, they likely served more practical functions as well. After all, sound isn't just a tool for prophecy, it's also a means of communication, of gathering people together, of sharing knowledge. And as we'll see next, these same echo chambers that may have echoed the voices of the gods could also have been used for something far more grounded: the transmission of practical information across vast distances. But what if these ancient echo chambers weren't just about rituals or art? What if they had a far more practical, even life-saving purpose? This brings us to the intriguing theory that some of these structures were designed as defensive tools. Imagine standing inside one of these chambers, your ear pressed to the stone, and hearing the faintest echo of footsteps miles away. It's not just a dramatic image, it's a possibility rooted in the way sound behaves in these spaces. The unique acoustics of echo chambers could have been used to detect the approach of enemies, giving communities a critical advantage in times of danger. Take, for example, the underground cities of Cappadocia in modern-day Turkey. These vast labyrinthine tunnels were carved into soft volcanic rock, and some researchers believe their acoustics were no accident. The way sound travels through these tunnels suggests they could have functioned as an early warning system. A distant rumble or the clatter of weapons might echo through the chambers, alerting those inside long before the threat arrived. This wasn't just about hearing noise, it was about interpreting it. The way sound bounced and reverberated could reveal the direction, speed, and even the size of an approaching force. And it wasn't just about defense. These chambers could have also served as communication hubs during emergencies. A single shout or drumbeat, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, could carry for miles, alerting allies or coordinating a response. It's a fascinating reminder of how ancient societies harnessed their environment in ingenious ways, turning the physics of sound into a tool for survival. But here's where it gets even more interesting. While these chambers may have been built with defense in mind, they didn't serve just one purpose. The same spaces that amplified the sounds of danger could also resonate with music, chants, or storytelling. This duality, practical and artistic, shows just how versatile these structures were. They weren't just walls of stone, they were canvases for both survival and creativity, blending the urgent with the eternal. One of the most fascinating aspects of ancient echo chambers is how they were harnessed for artistic expression. These spaces weren't just functional, they were stages for creativity where sound and space combined to elevate the human experience. Imagine standing in the heart of an ancient Greek theater, the air buzzing with anticipation as performers prepared to bring myths and legends to life. The acoustics of these chambers weren't an accident, they were carefully designed to amplify voices, carry music, and immerse audiences in the performance. Every note, every word resonated with clarity, making even the softest whisper audible to someone seated at the very top row. Music and dance thrived in these environments. The reverberations of a lyre or the rhythmic steps of dancers would bounce off the walls, creating a layered, almost otherworldly soundscape. It wasn't just about hearing the performance, it was about feeling it as the vibrations seemed to merge with the very ground beneath your feet. Storytelling, too, took on a new dimension in these spaces. A single voice could fill the chamber, drawing listeners into the tale with an intimacy that felt almost magical. Theater performances became grand spectacles where the acoustics ensured that every emotion, every nuance of dialogue reached every member of the audience. Take, for example, the theater of Epidaurus in ancient Greece. Built in the 4th century BCE, it's renowned for its near-perfect acoustics. Even today, a coin dropped on the stage can be heard clearly in the highest seats more than 50 meters away. This wasn't just a feat of engineering, it was a deliberate effort to create a space where art could thrive, where stories and songs could transcend their physical surroundings and touch the hearts of all who listened. But these chambers weren't solely reserved for entertainment. Their ability to amplify and clarify sound made them ideal for another purpose: education. The same acoustics that brought performances to life could also carry the voices of teachers and philosophers, ensuring their lessons reached every student, no matter where they sat. This dual role, artistic and educational, reveals just how versatile and impactful these ancient spaces truly were. Imagine standing in a vast circular chamber where every word you speak reverberates around you, as if the very walls are listening and repeating your voice back to you. This isn't just a fascinating acoustic phenomenon, it's a clue to how ancient cultures might have used these spaces as powerful educational tools. The idea that echo chambers were designed for teaching or transmitting knowledge isn't just speculation. It's rooted in the way sound behaves in these spaces. The acoustics of these chambers would have amplified speech while preserving clarity, making them ideal for oral traditions like storytelling, rituals, or the recitation of sacred texts. Take, for example, the Kivas of the ancestral Pueblones. These subterranean chambers, often circular in shape, were more than just meeting places. They were carefully engineered spaces where sound could travel with precision. In a kiva, a speaker's voice would resonate clearly, even in a whisper, allowing stories, lessons, or spiritual teachings to be shared with an entire group without strain. This wasn't just about convenience, it was about creating an immersive experience where knowledge could be passed down through generations with precision and emotional impact. But why go to such lengths to design spaces like this? For cultures without written languages, oral traditions were the lifeblood of their history, beliefs, and survival skills. In an echo chamber, a storyteller's voice wouldn't just be heard, it would be felt. The reverberations would add a layer of depth and gravity to the words, making them more memorable. Think of it as an ancient form of surround sound, where every syllable lingered in the air, embedding itself in the minds of listeners. This raises an intriguing question. Could these chambers have also served as early classrooms? It's entirely possible. The acoustics would have made them perfect for teaching complex ideas or sacred knowledge, ensuring that every word was heard clearly, even by those at the back of the room. And when you consider how sound can influence memory and emotion, it's easy to see how these spaces might have been used to create lasting impressions on students or initiates. But the story doesn't end with education. These same acoustic properties that made echo chambers ideal for teaching may have also lent themselves to another, equally fascinating purpose: healing. The resonance of sound, the way it can fill a space and vibrate through the body, suggests that these chambers might have been used for therapeutic or spiritual practices as well. And that's where our exploration takes us next. What if the ancient echo chambers weren't just about amplifying sound, but about something far more profound: healing? Across many ancient cultures, sound and vibration weren't just tools for communication or ritual. They were deeply tied to health and well-being. Imagine stepping into one of these chambers where the acoustics weren't just impressive but potentially transformative. The resonance of your voice, the vibrations of the space, these weren't just sensory experiences. They might have been part of a sophisticated understanding of how sound affects the body and mind. Take the ancient Greeks, for example. They believed in the concept of sympatheia, a harmony between the human body and the natural world. Sound was seen as a bridge between these realms, capable of restoring balance. In places like the Hypogeum of Hal Saflini in Malta, the way sound reverberates through the underground chambers creates frequencies that some researchers believe could have had therapeutic effects. These spaces weren't just architectural marvels, they might have been early sound therapy clinics. Modern science is beginning to catch up with what ancient cultures seemed to know intuitively. Today, sound therapy or sound healing uses vibrations from instruments like Tibetan singing bowls, gongs, or even the human voice to promote relaxation, reduce stress, and even alleviate pain. Studies have shown that certain sound frequencies can influence brainwave activity, helping to induce states of calm or focus. Could the ancient echo chambers have been designed to achieve similar effects? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. These chambers often produce frequencies that align with those used in modern sound therapy, suggesting that ancient builders might have understood the physiological impact of sound long before we had the technology to measure it. But healing wasn't the only purpose these chambers might have served. While sound therapy offers a fascinating lens through which to view these spaces, there's another layer to their mystery, one that hints at something even more enigmatic. What if these chambers were also designed to unlock experiences or knowledge that went beyond the physical? The ancient echo chambers scattered across the globe hold more secrets than just their remarkable acoustic properties. One of the most intriguing theories suggests that these chambers weren't just random structures, they were meticulously aligned with celestial or geographical features, pointing to a deeper, more intentional purpose. Imagine standing inside one of these chambers thousands of years ago, the walls humming with echoes as the light of the rising sun or the position of a star perfectly aligns with its entrance. Was this a coincidence, or were these alignments a deliberate act by our ancestors to connect with the cosmos? Take Newgrange, for example, a prehistoric monument in Ireland. Its entrance is precisely aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, allowing the first light of the shortest day of the year to flood the inner chamber. This alignment isn't just a feat of engineering, it's a profound statement. It suggests that these chambers were more than mere buildings. They were tools for understanding time, seasons, and perhaps even the movements of the heavens. Could they have served as ancient calendars, helping early societies track the passage of time with astonishing accuracy? Or were they sacred spaces designed to harness the energy of celestial events for spiritual or ritualistic purposes? But the alignments don't stop with the stars. Some echo chambers appear to be positioned in harmony with natural landmarks, mountains, rivers, or even distant horizons. This raises the possibility that these structures were part of a larger network, a web of knowledge connecting communities across vast distances. Were they used for navigation, guiding travelers through unfamiliar terrain by aligning with recognizable features? Or did they serve as markers for important trade routes, signaling safe passages or gathering points? The more we uncover, the more it seems that these chambers were not isolated marvels but pieces of a much grander puzzle. What's truly fascinating is how these alignments hint at a shared understanding of the world among ancient cultures. Whether it's the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Central America, or the stone circles of Europe, there's a recurring theme, a desire to harmonize human structures with the rhythms of nature and the cosmos. This suggests that echo chambers were more than just tools or temples, they were expressions of a worldview, a way for our ancestors to bridge the gap between the earthly and the divine. As we peel back the layers of this mystery, one thing becomes clear. These chambers were likely part of a larger system of knowledge, one that spanned continents and connected generations. They weren't just isolated experiments in sound or spirituality. They were nodes in a network designed to communicate, guide, and inspire. And as we explore this idea further, we'll uncover even more about how these ancient structures may have shaped the way early societies understood their place in the universe. The legacy of ancient echo chambers is a testament to the ingenuity and creativity of our ancestors, leaving behind a mystery that still captivates us today. These remarkable structures weren't just feats of engineering. They were profound expressions of human curiosity and the desire to understand the world through sound. From the whispering galleries of ancient temples to the resonant chambers carved deep into mountainsides, these spaces continue to inspire modern architects, musicians, and scientists alike. In today's world, the principles behind these ancient echo chambers have found new life in concert halls and recording studios, where acoustics are carefully designed to enhance sound. Architects study the geometry of these ancient spaces to create modern buildings that amplify and direct sound with precision. Even in the field of science, researchers explore how these ancient designs might inform new technologies, from noise-canceling systems to advanced communication devices. The echoes of the past are truly shaping the sounds of the future. But beyond their practical applications, these ancient echo chambers challenge us to rethink what we know about the civilizations that built them. How did they achieve such precision without modern tools? What rituals or ceremonies were these spaces designed for? Each question pulls us deeper into the mystery, reminding us that ancient peoples were far more advanced in their understanding of sound and space than we often give them credit for. These structures are not just relics, they are invitations to explore the sophistication of cultures long gone. As we near the end of this journey, it's worth reflecting on how these ancient echo chambers connect us across time. They remind us that the human desire to experiment, to create, and to understand is timeless. Whether you're a history enthusiast, a science buff, or simply someone who loves a good mystery, these structures offer something for everyone. They stand as monuments to human ingenuity, challenging us to keep asking questions and seeking answers. And with that, let's take a moment to revisit the key points we've explored in this video, tying together the threads of this fascinating story. As we wrap up this exploration into the enigmatic world of ancient echo chambers and sound technology, it's impossible not to marvel at the sheer ingenuity of our ancestors. These structures were far more than just architectural feats. They were profound tools that bridged the physical and spiritual realms, shaping the way ancient societies communicated, worshipped, and even healed. From the resonant halls of underground temples to the carefully designed chambers that amplified whispers into thunderous echoes, sound was a force that carried meaning far beyond what we might imagine today. What's truly remarkable is how these ancient cultures harnessed sound for purposes that still resonate with us. Whether it was the rhythmic chants of priests in sacred rituals, the soothing tones believed to promote healing, or the mysterious echoes that were thought to carry messages from the gods, sound was a language of its own. It connected people not just to each other, but to something greater, a sense of the divine, the cosmos, or the unknown. And while we may never fully unravel every mystery surrounding these chambers, each discovery brings us closer to understanding the depth of their wisdom. As modern researchers continue to study these ancient sites, we're reminded that the past holds secrets that can still teach us today. The interplay of architecture, acoustics, and human intuition reveals a sophistication that challenges our assumptions about ancient civilizations. They didn't just build for function, they built for meaning, weaving sound into the very fabric of their cultures. If you've enjoyed this journey into the strange and fascinating world of ancient echo chambers, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think these chambers were truly used for? Do you believe they held secrets we've yet to uncover? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of history. There's always more to discover.